How does someone leave a child with you for a moment, then act like you stole her years later? Why did my son's partner vanish, then return the second she heard about money meant for my granddaughter? What she did not expect was that I kept one document that turned her whole story upside down. My name is Tom Reilly. I am 56 years old, and I live in a small house at the edge of town. I am not a loud man. I do not like drama. I spent most of my working life in utilities, doing the kind of work that only gets noticed when something stops working. I learned to stay calm when other people panic. I learned to write things down. I learned to solve problems step by step. That morning started like any other weekday. The kitchen light was still soft. The kettle was warming up. My granddaughter, Lily, was at the table with her cereal, moving the spoon slowly, like she was still half asleep. She was small for her age, with hair that never stayed neat for long. She looked safe in my kitchen. That mattered to me more than anything. Then Kara arrived. Kara was my son's partner and Lily's mother. She did not knock the way she used to. She pushed the door in with her shoulder like she was carrying a heavy day. Her eyes were tired, but not the kind of tired that comes from working hard. It was the kind that comes from running in circles. She held Lily's bag in one hand. The bag was overstuffed. Clothes, a small blanket, a water bottle, and a cheap snack pack were sticking out. She set it down near my chair like she was placing a box at a delivery desk. She said she needed just a moment to take care of something important. She said she would be right back. She said it fast, like she wanted the words to land and end the conversation. I asked where she was going. I asked how long. I asked if she needed me to drive her. I kept my voice even because Lily was listening. Kara answered in short pieces. She said it was complicated. She said it was private. She said she did not have time to explain. She looked past me, like she was already outside. Lily asked if her mother was coming back soon. Kara nodded without really looking at her. She patted Lily's shoulder once, quick and light, like a habit. Then she turned and walked out. I watched her step off the porch and move down the path. I expected to hear her car door. I expected the engine. I expected the sound to fade and then return later. That was the normal pattern with Kara. She rushed in, she rushed out, and I cleaned up the mess in the middle. I waited 10 minutes, then 20. I told Lily her mother had errands and would come back. I said it like I believed it, because Lily needed steady words, not my worry. An hour passed. I called Kara. It rang and rang. No answer. I tried again. I sent a message asking if she was okay and if she needed help. I kept it short. I did not accuse. I did not demand. I just asked. Nothing came back. I stepped onto the porch and looked at the street. It was quiet. A delivery truck rolled by and kept going. A neighbor walked his dog and waved. He looked at me like he wanted to ask something, then decided not to. Lily finished her cereal and went to the living room. She turned on a cartoon and sat with her blanket. Every few minutes she looked toward the door. She did not say much. That silence was worse than any crying. I checked the time again. I had work later. I also had daycare drop-off. Routine was the one thing I could control. If I let the day fall apart, Lily would feel it. Children feel everything, even when adults try to hide it. I packed Lily's lunch. I added an extra snack without thinking. I put her water bottle in the side pocket of her bag. The bag Kara had brought was still by my chair. It looked too serious for a short visit. I did not want to think about what that meant. Before we left, I tried Kara one more time. Still no answer. In the car, Lily asked if her mother forgot something. I told her maybe Kara got busy. I told her Kara knew Lily was safe with me. Lily nodded, but her eyes stayed fixed on the window. At the daycare, the morning rush was starting. Parents were moving fast, holding coffee cups, pulling small coats over small arms. The front desk worker smiled at Lily first, then looked at me. Her smile tightened. She asked where Kara was. I said Kara had an urgent errand and asked me to do drop-off. The worker asked if Kara had called ahead. I said no, but Lily was expected, and I was her grandfather. I said I had done drop-off before. The worker looked at the screen and then back at me. She said Kara was listed as the primary contact. She said she needed confirmation for anyone else to sign Lily in. She said it like it was a rule, and like rules were more important than the little girl standing next to my leg. I felt other parents glance over. I felt that old heat in my face, the feeling of being judged without a full story. I did not raise my voice. I did not argue. I asked what she needed from me right now. She said she could call Kara. I told her she was welcome to try, but Kara was not answering me either. The worker's eyes flicked to Lily, then back to the screen. She said she could call the secondary contact. That was my name. At least it was there. She made the call, and my phone rang in my pocket while I stood 2 feet away. I answered and told her it was me. She seemed surprised by how simple that was. She asked a few more questions, like she was building confidence 1 brick at a time. Then she handed me the sign-in sheet. I signed my name. My hand stayed steady, but inside I felt something shift. Not anger, not fear, just a clear understanding. In that lobby, with people watching, I saw what Kara had done without saying it out loud. She had dropped Lily into my life like a package, and she had walked away assuming I would carry the weight quietly. She assumed I would be the safe option, the background adult, the man who solves problems without making anyone uncomfortable. I kissed Lily's forehead and told her I would pick her up after work. She held my hand a second longer than usual before she let go. When she walked into her classroom, she did not look back. I did not blame her. I walked back to my car and sat for a moment before starting the engine. I stared at my call history. All those unanswered attempts sat there like a row of closed doors. I did not know yet how long Kara would be gone. I only knew one thing for sure. Lily was with me now, and I had to handle this the right way. The next few days taught me how fast a story can form around you when you stay quiet. Kara still did not answer. I kept doing drop-off and pick-up. I kept making meals. I kept Lily's bedtime the same. From the outside, it probably looked normal. Inside my chest, it felt like I was walking with a weight I did not ask for. People started asking questions in small, careful ways. A neighbor asked if Kara was out of town. A coworker asked if I was taking a break from work. The daycare worker asked if there was an emergency contact besides Kara. Nobody said they doubted me, but I could feel it behind their eyes. I was the older man with the child. I was the one who needed to explain. That was the part that bothered me most. I had been in Lily's life from the beginning. I had changed diapers. I had carried her when she fell asleep in my arms. I had walked the living room floor with her when she was sick and could not settle. None of that showed up on a screen at the front desk. None of that fit into a simple box on a form. When my son was still around, things were different. He and Kara were young. They were trying to build a life, but they were always behind on something. Behind on rent, behind on plans, behind on responsibility. I helped because I thought that was what family did. I drove them to appointments. I fixed things in their apartment. I bought groceries when the pantry was thin. I did it quietly because I did not want my son to feel like he failed. Kara liked the help, but she never liked the feeling of needing it. When she was in a good mood, she said I was steady. She said Lily was lucky to have me. When she was stressed, her face changed. She acted like my help came with strings, even when it did not. She would get sharp over small questions, like when I asked what time she planned to pick Lily up. She would say she had it handled. She would say I worried too much. She would say I should relax. Over time, she started treating time with me like a free service. She would arrive late, leave early, and act like it was normal. If I asked for a schedule, she said life did not work like that. If I asked for school notices to be sent to me too, she said she did not want too many people involved. She wanted help, but she also wanted control. After my son was no longer here, I tried to keep things calm for Lily. I never spoke badly about Kara in front of her. I told myself Kara was overwhelmed. I told myself she would find her balance. I thought patience would fix it. I thought kindness would earn respect. I was wrong. Kara's visits became less predictable. Sometimes she brought Lily with a smile and stayed for coffee. Other times she dropped Lily off and acted like the room was on fire. She would say she needed to run an errand. She would say it would be quick. She would come back hours later and act surprised that I looked tired. I remember one afternoon in the pediatric clinic waiting room. Lily had a cough that would not go away. Kara had asked me to take her because she said she could not miss work. I sat with Lily on my knee and filled out the forms as best I could. When I reached the section about guardianship, I paused. I wrote grandfather. I wrote my phone number. I thought that was enough. At the counter, the nurse looked at the form and asked if I had permission to approve care. I said I was her grandfather and I was taking her today. The nurse asked if her mother knew. I said yes. The nurse said the policy required the legal guardian to sign certain things. She said it in a flat voice, like she had already decided what kind of man I was. I did not argue. I asked what steps they needed. I called Kara from the waiting room. Kara did not answer. I sent a message. I explained what the clinic needed. Minutes passed. The nurse came back and said they could do basic checks, but they needed clearer permission for anything more. She said I could wait, or I could come back when the mother was present. I looked at Lily's tired eyes and felt my stomach tighten. I told the nurse I understood. I told Lily we were going to be patient. I kept my voice calm because she was watching me learn a hard lesson. That lesson repeated at the playground, too. Lily and I went there after daycare one evening. She climbed the small ladder and slid down with a little laugh. I sat on the bench and watched her like I always did. Another parent sat nearby and asked where Lily's parents were. I said her mother was busy and I was her grandfather. The parent nodded, but then asked why her mother was not there more often. I said I did not know. The parent said it was a shame and then talked about how children need their mother. I did not fight. I just looked at Lily and made sure she was safe. Then came the school office. When Lily started school, I thought things would get easier. A schedule brings structure. Structure makes life calmer. On the first day, the secretary asked for parent contact information. I gave my details and asked to be included in all notices. The secretary looked at the screen and said Kara was listed as the parent. She said I could be added as an emergency contact. She said it like it was the highest level I could reach. Later, a permission slip came home for a simple class activity. Lily handed it to me at the kitchen table. She was excited. She said her class would be doing something special, and she wanted to bring a small item from home. I signed the slip. The next day, the slip came back with a note asking for a parent's signature. It was my signature. It still was not enough. I went to the school office after work. I brought the slip and asked what they needed. The secretary said they needed a parent to sign. I said I was the one raising her right now. The secretary said she understood, but the rule was the rule. She said I could have Kara update the records. I felt my face grow warm again. Lily sat in the hallway chair and listened. She stared at her shoes. On the drive home, Lily asked if she did something wrong. I told her no. I told her adults have paperwork rules. I told her I would handle it. She nodded, but her voice went small when she asked if her mother was coming back soon. That was the moment I started to understand the real damage. It was not just me being treated like a temporary helper. It was Lily being taught again and again that the person who showed up every day still had to prove he belonged. I kept my hands steady on the steering wheel. I kept my voice even, but inside, something tightened into focus. If the world only respected names on forms, then I needed my name on the right forms, not for pride, Not to win. For Lily's stability. For her peace. For her right to stop feeling like she could be taken away by a rule she did not understand. The week after the school office visit, I stopped hoping Kara would suddenly act like a responsible adult. Hope was making me soft and slow. Lily needed structure, not my wishful thinking. So I did what I always did when a situation turned unstable. I broke it into steps. I wrote down what I knew. I listed what I did not know. I looked for the next correct action. I went back to the school office with a calm face and a folder in my hand. I did not have anything official yet, but I had notes. I had Lily's schedule. I had my own contact information typed clearly on a sheet of paper. I asked the secretary what the school needed from me to stop sending permission slips back. The secretary said she did not want to make things hard. She said she saw me at drop-off every morning. She said Lily was always clean and fed and ready to learn. Then her voice changed. She said the school had rules. She said if a child's guardian situation was unclear, the school had to report it up the chain. She said it like she was warning me, not threatening me. I told her I understood. I asked her to tell me who up the chain was. She pointed me to the counselor's office. Ms. Grant, the school counselor, was kind but careful. She offered me a chair and asked basic questions. She asked how long Lily had been living with me. She asked when Kara last picked her up. She asked if I had a written agreement. I told her the truth. I said Kara had been drifting for a while, and then she stopped answering. I said Lily had stayed with me because there was nowhere else stable. I said I had not hidden her from anyone. I said I kept sending messages and asking for clarity. Ms. Grant nodded and said she believed I cared about Lily. She said she could see that. Then she said something that made my stomach tighten. She said she had to think about Lily's legal safety, not just her day-to-day comfort. She said if Kara showed up and demanded Lily, the school could not refuse without proper paperwork. She said the school could not take my word in a crisis, even if she personally trusted me. That was the line being crossed again. Not because Ms. Grant was cold. She was doing her job. The problem was the system only respected documents, and Kara was the kind of person who used gaps in the system when it suited her. On the way home, Lily sat quiet in the back seat. When we stopped at a red light, she asked if she was going to be taken away. She did not cry. She asked it like a child asks about the weather, because children try to act brave when they are scared. I told her no. I told her I was not going to let her life be turned upside down. I told her grown-ups sometimes forget their responsibilities, but other grown-ups can step in and do things properly. Lily looked at my face in the mirror like she was checking if I meant it. I kept my voice steady, because if I sounded unsure, she would carry that fear into her sleep. That evening I went to the community center. I had driven past it 100 times and never needed it. The building was plain and quiet, with a front desk and a few chairs. A woman behind the desk asked what I needed. I told her I was raising my granddaughter, and her mother had stopped responding. I said I wanted to make sure I was doing everything the correct way. She did not judge me. She did not talk down to me. She asked questions, and her questions were practical. She asked how long the child had been with me. She asked if I had her birth records. She asked if I knew where Kara was staying. She asked if there had been any contact at all. I told her what I knew. I told her what I did not know. I said I wanted Lily to stay in school without fear. I said I wanted medical care to be simple. I said I wanted her to stop feeling like she was borrowed instead of loved. The woman said there were steps I could take. She said the steps were not fast, but they were clear. She said I needed a timeline. She said I needed proof of daily care. She said I needed witnesses where possible, like teachers or daycare staff. She said I should not wait for a crisis to force action. I listened. I did not interrupt. I did not argue. I asked for a list. She gave me a short printed sheet with general guidance and phone numbers for legal support services. I did not treat it like a victory. I treated it like a map. When I got home, Lily was drawing at the kitchen table. I sat across from her with my own paper. I wrote the date at the top. I wrote down the time Kara left that morning. I wrote down the exact words she used as best as I could remember. I wrote down the times I called and the times I sent messages. I wrote down daycare and school notes. I wrote down everything that had happened since. It felt strange to write my life like a report, but I knew why it mattered. People like Kara used confusion as a shield. If I stayed vague, I would always look unsure. If I stayed organized, I could speak with clarity when someone tried to twist the story. A few days later, an officer came to my door. His name was Officer Miles. He was polite and calm. He said he was doing a welfare check. He said someone had called with concern about a child living with a grandparent. He did not accuse me of anything, but his presence on my porch told me the situation had moved beyond gossip. I invited him in. I asked if he wanted to see where Lily slept. I offered him a glass of water. I did not act offended because offense would not help Lily. Officer Miles looked around the living room. He looked at the school backpack by the door. He looked at the family photos on the shelf. He asked Lily a few gentle questions about school and meals and bedtime. Lily answered simply, like a child who feels safe enough to be honest. Officer Miles said he could see she was cared for. He said he would note that. He asked if I had legal paperwork. I told him I was working on it. I told him I was following the proper steps. He nodded like he had heard that before from people who did not mean it, and he watched my face to see if I was serious. I stayed calm. After he left, I stood in the hallway for a long moment. The house was quiet. Lily was humming to herself in the living room while she colored. I realized something important. Kara was not just absent. Kara was still reaching into our lives from a distance, shaping the story without showing her face. That night, I went into the garage and pulled out an old file box. I cleared a space on my workbench. I placed a clean folder in front of me and wrote Lily's name on the tab in block letters. I added another folder behind it labeled with the year. I put my notebook on top. I did not feel anger. I felt focus. I felt the clear, steady decision of a man who finally understands the rules of the game. If people wanted proof, I would give proof. If institutions needed structure, I would provide structure. Lily deserved a life that did not depend on whether her mother felt like answering the phone. So I opened my notebook, turned to a fresh page, and kept writing down the dates. I moved my small planning setup into the home office that week. It was a spare room with an old desk, a lamp, and a shelf that still smelled like dust and paper. I did not make it dramatic. I just made it steady. I put a notebook in the center. I put a calendar beside it. I put a simple tray for receipts and notes. Every night after Lily went to bed, I sat down for 20 minutes and wrote what happened that day. At first, the notes were plain: school drop-off at the same time, pick-up at the same time, dinner, homework, bath, bedtime. Then I added the small things that mattered. A teacher note about Lily's reading. A message from daycare asking who could pick her up if I got stuck at work. A reminder that Lily needed a refill on a basic item. I did not write these things because I wanted to win a fight. I wrote them because the world kept asking me to prove that Lily had a normal life. I also kept a list of every time I tried to reach Kara. I wrote the date and time. I wrote if it was a call or a message. I wrote if there was any reply. There was almost never a reply. Sometimes there was a short response days later that did not answer anything. It felt like she wanted to keep things blurry. If she kept things blurry, she could shape the story later. One afternoon, I took my lunch break and drove to a small law office on the other side of town. The building was quiet, with a waiting room that had 2 chairs and a table with old magazines. I did not walk in like a man looking for trouble. I walked in like a man looking for instructions. Ms. Patel met me in the lobby. She did not rush me. She asked me to explain from the start. I spoke in dates and facts, not opinions. I told her Kara had left Lily with me and said it would be a short moment. I told her she stopped responding. I told her about the school office, the clinic questions, and the welfare visit. I told her I wanted to do everything the correct way because Lily's life depended on stability. Ms. Patel listened and took notes. She said the system responds to patterns, not emotions. She said consistency matters. She said I should keep records and stay calm, even if Kara returned with a loud story. She said there were legal steps, but they needed a clean timeline. She also said something that stayed with me. She said that when a person disappears and returns later, they often return with a purpose. She said I should be ready for the purpose, not just the return. I did not ask her to show me papers. I did not ask her to promise outcomes. I asked what I should do next. She told me to gather basic records from the places Lily touched every day: school, daycare, and medical visits. She told me to keep a simple record of costs too, because people love to argue about money once they realize the situation is real. She told me to avoid side conversations and keep communication clear and calm. After that, I made a routine for the record work. On Tuesday, I requested school records and asked the counselor to note who attended meetings and who signed forms. On Wednesday, I spoke to daycare and asked them to keep me listed properly as the daily caregiver for drop-off and pickup. On Thursday, I called the clinic and asked what they needed on file so Lily could receive normal care without delays. I did not demand special treatment. I asked what their policy required. Then I followed it. It was tiring, not in a dramatic way, but in a steady, grinding way. I still had work. I still had a home. I still had a child to raise. And now I also had a system to satisfy. Some nights I wanted to shut the notebook and pretend it would all resolve on its own. But then Lily would ask a small question, like whether she could join a school activity, and I would remember why I was doing it. I was building a life where she did not have to feel uncertain. A few days later, I went to the bank branch where my son used to cash his paychecks. I had an appointment with a staff member who worked with family accounts and benefits. I did not tell Lily where I was going. I just told her I had an errand after work and I would pick her up on time. The bank office was quiet, with glass walls and a desk that felt too clean. The staff member spoke carefully. She asked for identification and basic information. She asked how I was connected to Lily. I told her I was her grandfather and her daily caregiver. The staff member nodded and said there had been a note in the system connected to my son's employment. She did not explain it in full. She just said there was something intended for Lily's future. She said it could not be handled casually. I felt my stomach tighten, but I kept my face calm. I asked what the correct process was. She said there were steps and that I should come back with my lawyer so everything was done properly. She said the bank did not like confusion and it would not act on stories alone. She said the bank needed the right authority and the right record. I thanked her and left without pushing for details in that room. Outside, sitting in my car, I stared at the steering wheel for a long moment. For years, Kara had treated Lily's life like a loose bag she could drop off and pick up whenever she felt ready. Now I realized there might be a reason she would suddenly care about control again. I did not know the full shape of it yet, but I could feel the direction. That same week, I met a mutual acquaintance at a coffee shop. I did not go there to gossip. I went because the person had asked to talk, and I sensed it might matter. We sat in a corner booth. The shop was loud enough that people could not easily hear us, but quiet enough that every word felt sharp. The acquaintance said Kara had been asking questions about me. She had been asking whether I had legal rights over Lily. She had been asking whether I had access to any money connected to my son. The acquaintance said Kara was telling people she planned to sort it out soon. The words sounded rehearsed, like she was practicing a version of herself that looked responsible. I did not react. I just listened. I asked when Kara started asking these questions. The acquaintance gave me a rough time frame. It matched the bank appointment. It matched the feeling I had in my chest. On the drive home, I did not feel panic. I felt confirmation. Kara had not returned because she missed Lily. She was circling back because something valuable was nearby. People like her do not move without a reason. They move when they smell opportunity. That night, I opened my folder again and added new notes. I wrote down the bank appointment date and the staff member's instructions. I wrote down the coffee shop conversation in simple facts. I wrote down the timeline again, from the day Kara left to the present day. I read it twice, not to make myself angry, but to make myself clear. When I went to check on Lily before bed, she was asleep with her hand curled around the edge of her blanket. Her face was calm. That calm was my responsibility now. I stood in the doorway and made a promise to myself. I would not let someone return and flip her life over with a loud story. I would keep doing this the right way, even if it was slow, even if it was tiring, even if people looked at me like I was just a temporary helper. Then I turned off the hallway light and went back to my desk, where the notebook was waiting. 7 years passed faster than I can explain. Lily went from a small child with a blanket to a second grader who could tie her own shoes and read signs out loud. Our house changed with her. A small desk appeared in the corner of the living room, the fridge filled with drawings and school notices. The routine became our anchor. Kara did not fully disappear during those years, but she stayed far enough away to keep everything unstable. Some years she sent one short message on a holiday. Some years she sent nothing at all. When she did reach out, it was never about Lily's daily life. It was never about homework or school meetings. It was about control. It was about access. It was about making sure she still existed in the story. I kept the same approach, calm, records, clear steps. I never told Lily to hate her mother. I did not need to. Lily could feel who showed up and who did not. Then, one afternoon in early fall, Kara showed up at my door like time had not passed. I opened the door and saw her standing there with a tight smile. Her hair was styled. Her clothes looked planned. She was not coming from a hard day. She was coming with a purpose. Behind her stood a man I had never met. He was taller than me and carried himself like he was used to walking into rooms and taking space. He held a car key in his hand and spun it like it was a habit. Kara introduced him as Brent. She said he was her partner. Brent nodded once and looked past me into my house like he was checking what he might claim. Lily was in the living room doing homework. When she heard Kara's voice, she froze. She did not run. She did not smile. She just stared, like her mind was trying to match a face to an old memory. Kara stepped forward like she expected a welcome. Lily did not move. Kara said she wanted to talk. She said she was ready to fix things. She said she wanted Lily to spend time with her again. She said it like a promise, but it sounded like a script. I told Kara we could talk, but not in the doorway and not in front of Lily. I asked her to sit at the kitchen table. Kara hesitated, then sat. Brent stayed standing for a moment, then sat too, but he chose a chair that faced the hallway, like he wanted to watch both rooms. Kara spoke first. She said she had gone through a hard period. She said she had needed space. She said she had always planned to come back. She said she never meant for things to become legal. That word caught my attention. I had not used it. Kara used it first. Then Kara started circling around money without saying the word at first. She said she had heard there were benefits connected to my son's old job. She said she wanted to make sure everything was fair. She said Lily deserved the best, and she said that meant she should be involved again. Brent leaned forward and added his own comments. He said Lily needed her mother. He said a child should not be raised by an older man alone. He said people would ask questions. He said it would look strange if I kept Lily from her mother now that Kara was ready. I let him finish. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I told Kara that Lily's life was not a switch you could flip on when it suited you. I told her Lily had a school, friends, and routines. I told her I would not make Lily's life unstable to match Kara's timing. Kara's smile tightened. She said she did not want conflict. She said she wanted a simple solution. She said we could write something up like adults. She said we could avoid court. I told her I did not avoid systems. I respected systems. I told her if she wanted change, it needed to be done properly and with Lily's stability first. Kara looked at Brent, and Brent looked back at me like he had expected a softer answer. Kara stood up and said she would contact me soon. She said she had people who could help her. Brent stood too, a half step behind her, like muscle without being asked. Before leaving, Kara looked toward the living room and said Lily would understand one day. Lily did not respond. Kara left without even saying goodbye the way a mother should. That evening, after Lily went to bed, I called Ms. Patel. I did not panic. I just told her Kara had returned and mentioned fairness and benefits. Ms. Patel said the timing was not random. She said we would keep everything clean and calm. She said I should not meet Kara alone again. She said any communication should be simple and saved. 2 days later, a message came from a number I did not recognize. It said it was Kara's attorney. The message asked for a meeting and used formal language that tried to sound polite while also sounding confident. It suggested I had been keeping the child. It suggested I should cooperate to avoid further steps. I read it twice. Then I copied it into my folder and did not reply right away. Ms. Patel arranged a meeting at a diner near the courthouse. She said neutral ground was better. She said it was important that I stayed calm because people who rely on pressure often reveal more when you do not react. At the diner, Kara arrived dressed like she was going to a business appointment. Brent came with her again. The attorney introduced himself with a firm handshake and a practiced smile. He spoke to Ms. Patel more than he spoke to me, like I was a background person in my own life. They talked about reunification. They talked about rights. They talked about money without saying it directly at first, then said it more clearly once they realized I would not flinch. The attorney suggested I should hand Lily over in a staged plan. He suggested Kara should control the benefits for Lily because she was the mother. He suggested I would be seen as difficult if I refused. He suggested I had enjoyed being needed. Brent added little comments about how a child needs a young, active home. He said I could still be involved in a grandfather role if I accepted the new setup. He said it like he was offering me a seat at a table he had already claimed. I said I understood what they wanted. I said Lily's stability was my priority. I said any decision would be made through the proper process, with professionals, and with Lily's welfare first. I did not insult anyone. I did not argue about the past. I kept my words short. Kara's face showed irritation for a second, then she put the smile back on. She said I was being stubborn. She said I was holding on too tightly. She said I was acting like Lily was mine. I told her Lily was not an object. I told her Lily was a child who needed consistency. I told her I would not let anyone rewrite 7 years of daily care with a loud story and a quick demand. When the meeting ended, the attorney said we would be seeing each other soon. He said it like he expected me to feel fear. I did not. The next week, a court date was set. Ms. Patel handled the scheduling and told me exactly where to be and when. I prepared Lily in the simplest way I could. I told her adults were going to talk in a formal place. I told her she was safe. I told her she did not need to fix anything. Lily nodded and asked if she had to choose. I told her no, because a child should not carry that weight. On the morning of the hearing, I dressed in plain clothes, clean and neat. I placed my folders in a box and set it by the door. I made Lily breakfast like any other day. I dropped her at school and told her I would be there at pickup. Then I drove to the courthouse and parked. I sat in the car for a moment and breathed slowly. I did not feel rage. I felt steady. Inside the courthouse lobby, Kara was already there with Brent and her attorney. They stood close together like a team. Kara looked at me and did not look away. Brent gave a small smile like he expected to watch me fold. Ms. Patel stood beside me and kept her voice calm. She told me to let the process work. She told me to answer questions plainly. She told me not to react to pressure. When the clerk called our names, I stood up, held my box carefully, and walked toward the courtroom doors without looking back. Inside the courtroom, everything felt colder and quieter than the lobby. The benches were hard. The ceiling lights were bright. Kara sat with her attorney on one side. Brent sat behind them, arms crossed, watching me like I was a problem he could solve with presence alone. When the judge came in, everyone stood, then sat. The judge looked at the file, then looked at Kara first. Kara spoke like she had practiced. She said she left Lily with me for a short moment years ago and returned to find I would not give her back. She said I blocked her and made it impossible to see her child. Her attorney added that I had kept Lily without permission and asked the court to order an immediate transfer. Then the conversation turned to the real reason they were there. The attorney said there were funds connected to my son's old job and that Kara, as the mother, should control them. He said the money should follow her and that I should step back into a support role. I stayed calm and answered only what I was asked. I told the judge the same simple facts I had lived for years. I said Lily had been with me day after day. I said she had school, a routine, medical care, and a stable home. I said I did not hide her. I said I kept reaching out and asked for Kara to return properly. Kara's attorney tried to paint me as controlling. He asked why I never returned the child. That was when Ms. Patel stood and said we were ready to show the court something Kara's story could not explain. Ms. Patel handed the clerk a document and asked the judge to review it. The judge read in silence. I watched his eyes slow down as he reached the signature line. It was the paper Kara signed in my kitchen the morning she left Lily with me. Back then, I had asked her for a quick written note for daycare and school, just in case. Kara was in a rush, so she signed without thinking. She wrote Lily's full name, my name, and a clear statement that Lily would remain in my care while Kara handled personal matters. It was dated and had a witness line signed by my neighbor, who happened to be at my door that morning returning a tool. Kara's face tightened when the judge lifted the page slightly and asked if that was her signature. Kara tried to say she did not remember signing anything like that. The judge asked for her identification. He compared the signature on her ID with the one on the paper. Then he looked up and asked Kara why she claimed she left for a moment, when this document described an open-ended placement. Kara's attorney shifted strategies and pushed the money again. Ms. Patel then provided the benefit paperwork that had been filed for Lily years earlier, showing Lily as the named child and showing that payments were restricted for her needs, managed only by a verified guardian with proper authority. The judge read that too, slower this time, like he was checking every word. The judge asked Kara one final question about why she returned now, after years, and why the first demand was control over the funds. Kara did not answer cleanly. Brent stared at the floor. The judge's decision was short and firm. He denied Kara's request for an immediate transfer. He ordered Lily to remain with me under the existing arrangement and set strict conditions for any contact to happen through a formal schedule. Then he looked directly at Kara and said her claim that I took Lily did not match the record. In the hallway afterward, Kara's attorney packed his folder without speaking to me. Brent stood very still, like his confidence had drained out. Kara walked past me without meeting my eyes, and the only sound was the scrape of their shoes on the tile as they left.